Hey, good evening, everyone, or good afternoon, or good morning, based on wherever you are in the world. Thanks, Amit, for this opportunity and the work you're doing in creating amazing content with Apex Hours. Thanks, everyone, for joining on a Saturday evening. I know it's not you have a lot of other things to do, but spending time in this session itself is showing how motivated you are to know more about CTA. So, best of luck in your preparation. So, I'll try to me and Amit, we really want to cater this talk in a very unique way because we don't want to repeat the same content that's available in the internet. So we did something different. We kind of zoom in and we want to give a different perspective to the complete presentation. Saying that, I would like to take a moment, like 10 seconds, to really thank the community, especially the people who are contributing or democratizing a lot of content around CT and architect related content. Because I am benefited by that because during my CTA preparation, I was and quickly jumping into my introduction. Yeah. My name is Pranil Pidikiti. So I'm based in Paris, over a decade in IT and 8 years of it in Salesforce, especially in sales, in and around Salesforce ecosystem. Working currently for PwC as a senior digital transformation leader and also Salesforce domain leader. I help clients across EMEA, across Europe and Middle East, in their digital transformation journeys, especially delivering solutions with meaningful and measurable outcomes. So follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn to really, if you have any questions, just throw a message to me and I'll be happy to help you guys. And I'm a CTA. I passed CTA in September 2020 after 2 years of preparation. So right, uh, I think it's been a while. So I'm trying to see or look back what went right and what went wrong, and trying to share that with all of you folks. So agenda of this meeting is, as you already know, it's focused on Q&A. Why is Q&A critical in a review board? And what are the required skills or approaches? And my experience dealing with the Q&A. At last, we'll see what kind of a key takeaways we can take out of my experience and the overall knowledge from the community. Last is Q&A about the Q&A. So let me jump into the first section. Why is Q&A critical in a review board? I think most of you guys already know there is a preparation. You will be given a scenario, you'll be preparing on the scenario, then you'll be presenting it. And after that, there'll be Q&A. Q&A is the last stage in the review board. You'll be confronting after like 4 hours of intense working. You know, I I feel 4 hours of this kind of a work you don't do in your day-to-day work. Even when you're working with a client, no client will be asking you to have this complete solutioning done in half a day. So this is a very typical scenario. So you will be mentally drained because we don't do this often. So especially in that mental state, confronting and answering Q&A is a pretty critical thing. This is also when the judges actively participate in a conversation with you. Till then, judges will be there in your preparation. You're on your own. You will be preparing. You will be solutioning. You will be doing artifacting. Then during the presentation, you will be talking. Judges will be passively listening. So no conversation. No one will be bothering you. So even if it's right or wrong, at last in the Q&A, this is where they confront. They start asking you the questions. This is when you. It's a kind of a reveal phase for you, how it all went in the last two steps. And also, this is the last opportunity to fill the gaps in the overall solution because you might have thought uh, something as a solution. Maybe some detail is missing. All these things, this is the moment, this 45 minutes or 1 hour is the time where you have to fill everything. And also, only finite number of questions to cover the complete scenario. When I mean finite number, there's no limit on the number of questions, but there is a finite time. Let's say you have 45 minutes. How many questions can be asked during 45 minutes? But with my pace, because I do this mock and I know I can answer around 30 to 35 questions maximum. In 35 questions, I have to answer or cover a 10-page scenario, like 60 requirements in detail. So it's not easy. So you have to really optimize the time and the way that you respond and make sure that response is right so that there will be no follow-up questions. And the next one is different possibilities need different approaches. You can't have like a one shoe fits all solution here. You Because your Q&A completely depends on how your presentation and how your solutioning went. Because let's say you have 40 to 60 requirements, each requirement will have a solution. That solution can be, because these are the possibilities I clearly mentioned, your solution might be completely invalid. Let's say you might have given an opportunity object for a customer community plus license. That's an invalid thing. So then judges will come and ask you, they'll try to help you. They'll tell you, hey, so can you go to your persona table? Okay, the so and so user is having what license? Okay, so customer community plus. And what kind of an object will he be using? Opportunity. Okay, does that sound good? So see, when you see that, they will try to drive you towards the right approach. So you will change it from invalid to valid. That's one way. That one is missing a requirement completely, because or haven't covered it because of time constraint. Because during your preparation, maybe there are two or three lines. There is a certain thing in the last line in a single sentence, or three or four words, that kind of change the whole meaning of the requirement. You might have missed that, or else maybe the last section where you haven't got enough time to cover that. So these things, if you completely miss the requirement during the Q&A, you will be asked to go through the requirement again and give a solution. So in that, you directly, if you have a solution, you will be just like presentation, you will be giving your solution. Next thing is, solution is suboptimal. You gave a solution, but the solution is not really good. Maybe you are using an apex sharing, or you are using a kind of an integration pattern where, or if you are using a trigger where kind of process builder is more than enough. In that case, judges again will come and discuss with you why you felt that as a right approach. You can either justify it, or you can go towards a more optimal approach. The next one is, solution is optimal, but rational is missing. This is where a lot of people waste their time. You know the right approach. You presented it. You clearly explained it, but you missed to give why you went towards that approach. Maybe you went towards an epic sharing, or else you went some kind of an integration, uh, maybe a process builder, calling external services, something like that. That is pretty optimal, but you have to tell why you went in that approach. That rationale is very, very important. And last thing is, change of one solution or data model. Mm, any change made on the data model made the solution invalid. So this is complete. This happens mostly in the Q&A, because you were asked to correct something. You're trying to correct something, which kind of have a dominoes effect on something else. That requirement is become invalid now. So now judges will ask you, hey, now what about that requirement? So how do you solve that? So now you have to, first thing, you have to really understand the dependencies even before judges ask for this correction, so that you yourself fix things as a part of that initial requirement. If not, if judges, when they come back, take a moment, think that this change will not break anything else. So try to minimize the blast radius, so you can concentrate on one approach that kind of fixes everything. So this is one possibility. So doing all these things in that 45 minutes time is very, very critical. So that's why I said Q&A is very critical. Either it can make or break your complete review board result. I think you might have already known this. You guys are you people are already on this CTA journey. So you have preparation, presentation, and Q&A, as we talked before. In preparation, what do they expect? They expect you to have a detailed artifact and a solution key. In presentation, what do they expect? They expect you to give a very effective presentation and also add justification or rationale to each and every solution. Last thing is a Q&A. They expect you to give precise and succinct answers. What are they asking? Why are they asking? And how do you solve, or how do you bridge that gap? So this is what. So now it's all about how. Okay, so how is the most complicated things. How do you really Though our focus is on Q&A, I'll just take a moment to really give the preparation and presentation, because there are a lot of common things between your preparation till Q&A. Because in your whole CTA board or in the exam, there is a drive that should start in the preparation, which should stay till Q&A. Take example, the Salesforce knowledge. You have to have a really good knowledge about the Salesforce ecosystem. What products are you using? What licenses are being used? Why are they being used? What patterns and security constraints? These things you have to, at the limits especially, you have to have all these things in your head. And this knowledge you have to contextualize you for your scenario. Let's say you get a scenario that's linked to a particular industry, and there are a set of personas, and now you have to build up a kind of a solution in around that. That solutioning need your Salesforce knowledge. So that is very important. That's needed in preparation, that's needed in presentation, and also in Q&A. Second most important thing is the time management. I think my whole exam went for around 5.5 hours. So I think that's the fastest 5.5 hours in my life. You feel, oh my God, that's 5.5 hours. But each of these pieces are so well structured that you will not have enough time. It's always the time crunch. You have to run, you have to optimize, you have to practice, so that in that particular time and that limited time you try to give your best. So time management is very important. And then, especially for the preparation, it's rapid reading. When you're reading 7 to 10 page document, you have to read multiple times to really uh, understand the complete requirement, and then build your solution. Again, come back to that to see you haven't had left anything. So this whole juggling between your solution and reading needs you to be at pace, especially on the reading part. And your cross industry experience. This is something, if you ask me before, 6 months or 1 year, I could have said maybe not really important. But now when I look back, I feel cross industry is very important. You working, let's say, in automobile and banking and different industries. When I say cross industry, different verticals, this will give you an understanding not only about the Salesforce products, but also about the how they work. Because you're in a retail execution company, they have different compliances, they have different data model. If you're used to these kind of data models, you will become flexible in order to adapt the data model. You will not always stick to the standard Salesforce model. Sometimes some industries force you to move towards a different data model because they have a different compliance, different requirement, different complexities. So you will get this flexibility in your head. So that's very important. Last thing is the annotations. Will give you or will help you, kind of, they will index your whole scenario. When you go back and you want to refer, these annotations that you put right next to every integration requirement or every other requirement will help you. uh, Kind of, this is the distilled version of your bulk scenario. You can't always go and look in let's say, in 60 requirements, you can't see where this thing is. Maybe it's on third page, fourth page. No, these annotations will help you to go jump into the right requirement without wasting a lot of time. Talking about the presentation, in the presentation, time management and Salesforce knowledge will be important. As said, there will be right approach to address what's being asked. First of all, for the presentation, your what is your scorecard. In scorecard, they expect to cover these things. Let's say if you're on the landscape, in the landscape, what should be covered? Okay, you should cover the org strategy, mobile strategy, integration, identity, reporting, document management system. These are certain things that were expected to cover in that artifact. That should be covered before you move on to the next artifact. So to cover these things, it's more like a checklist. Okay, but because it's in that time crunch, you will not have a paper or something to refer to. So it should be more as a uh, based with the practice. You get to that mental model where whenever you jump onto that, the sequence. You cover these requirements. You have a solution just crunched out of this big scenario. Now you have a structure. You mix these two things to create a narrative. That narrative should be crisp. And at the same time, when you're narrating this, don't forget to add rational to every solution. So this is where this why block will come. Taken as an example, I see a lot of people in the landscape or, or licenses. They know that. They know why they did that. But let's say we know that we all know that in a landscape you need an ESP and ETL. We know that ESB is for a number of things: orchestration, metering, monitoring, and a lot of things. It's in an enterprise scale. It's always recommended, and even judges know that. But you have to tell that why is important, and also the type of communication, all these things you have to really, first thing you have to, some things you can directly put on the artifact, some things you have to narrate it during your presentation. That's very important. That's where the clear articulation will also come. The presentation structure, as I said, these three will be amalgamated in order to make an effective presentation. Let's come back to our focus module, focus today, the Q&A. Time management is still there. Salesforce knowledge is key, because again, when sometimes you respond, this knowledge is the basis on which you you give your answers. Again, your approach here, this, for the presentation, your approach is your Salesforce scorecard is your structure, but your Q&A, to address to answer a question that's asked by a judge, first thing you have to think is, why is he or she is asking me this question? Why are they asking? Then point to your solution. Okay, let's say they talk about JWT. So where exactly I was using, what was missing in my JWT slide? Maybe what they were expecting is something else. Like maybe they were talking about 2SSL. Try to map it. So it's when they ask the question, don't be in a rush to jump to give a solution. You can take 1 to 3 seconds in order to think and understand what are they asking before answering, because you giving a wrong answer wastes more time. You going in a wrong path will will might help or might push you into a corner where judges will ask more questions on an area which you're not very comfortable with. So be precise, understand what they're asking, and then answer it. Again, clear articulation. When you know what, it's all about, now you know what exactly they were expecting. So now you have to answer that. How can I answer it in a very precise way? And that precise also, how can you tune it to shrink it to the minimum possible size? And last thing is the reflex responses. The reflex responses is where, in a Q&A, there will be a lot of questions. We know that they will be there, in the sense, either you will have some questions on identity, maybe 2SSL, certain things. They are literally, they'll be always there. They'll ask you to draw a JWT flow. These things will be there. When you know that there is a possibility that this question can come in the Q&A, practice it enough so that you will not use your uh, or your willpower in order to answer that. Let it be a reflex. When JWT, just because you practiced it n number of times, now it's just a reflex. Now you can draw without even thinking. So that's the level of flexibility you should go, or you should move into. Okay, so just let me move to the just one sec. Okay, good. Now, so my experience dealing with, now we talked about why is it critical, and what this Q&A is expecting, and how to deal with it. Now it's about my experience. My experience, how it went, and now what we can take, or when I look back, what are the things I can pick and tell worked for me. First thing, everything is interlinked. Your right approach in your presentation or preparation will help your Q&A. Your right approach of presentation helps your Q&A. It's more like a trickle down effect. So you have to do each module well, so that the emphasis on the Q&A will be as less as possible, because you will have less things to worry about. You have less things to cover. And next thing is, try to cover as much detail as possible in your artifact detail and in the presentation narrative. As I said before, so try to make your artifacts so clean, in the sense, so detailed. Even that comes with a lot of practice. So I saw people in their presentation, in the preparation, sorry, this people have 4 or 5 artifacts with a solution key, to people who have around 18 artifacts. So it's up to your level of detailing. Sometimes one single artifact can talk more than 3 or 4 artifacts. So don't take that as a metric that you have to have a lot of artifacts, it's all about what your artifact is trying to cover. Am I covering all the points that the scorecard is talking about or the study guide is talking about? That's one thing. And so that we can avoid specific questions on relevant sections, uh, there are certain sections or topics which, if we cover well in these two things, the Q&A, they will not even come back in the Q&A. You can completely cover these things without a problem. So that's very important to keep in mind, because if you remove certain things out of the Q&A, you can only concentrate on some critical elements. You have more time to explain. You have more chances that you can also fill the gaps, so you can pass all the sections. So you have to have this kind of a model in your brain. The other thing is, build a mental map of dependencies and solutions. So when you read this whole solution key, try to see, hey, how many personas are there? What is it like? Is it an internal user, partner user, customer user? Is it a 3-point model, or is it there are two partners and a customer? Is it a 4-point model? Like, trying to visualize these things, put people as internal, external. If it is external, customer, partner, or CCP, try to group them apart and try to visualize it. Okay, so when I change my data model, what will be the blast radius? So, okay, data model is changed. First thing I should be worried about is my licenses. And then when licenses are changed, my personas, the sharing model is changed. See, this whole connected model is, uh, now when I'm saying it's pretty theoretical, but when you link it back to the scenario, uh, then that's the real challenging thing. But if you can make that map in your head, when in the Q&A, you will avoid this whole dominoes effect. So when you're changing something, you know what's going wrong, why is it going, and what else I should be covering thing. Again, that comes with a lot of practice. Pay special attention, minimize the unexpected or unknown. As said before, what will they be asking? Your scenario, when you read it, you'll know that, okay, these are the places where I feel the discussion can go, because this is the whole complex thing. This, in terms of, don't think in terms of user story, think in terms of user journey. In the user journey for this persona, this is a critical piece. This is where the business objective is. So this is where a lot of thought process should go into, or else I'm using a kind of epic sharing somewhere. So think twice or thrice. Is it the right way to do it? So try to minimize the unexpected. Like in the Q&A, try to have an idea of, okay, the discussion might go towards this. Like, it can change, but at least have an assumption and go. So if you if you're right, your whole Q&A will more like a decision tree. You know where it starts. Okay, data model, then how it will go and what it will cover, and you might even finish your Q&A before the given time. So that's a very good sign. And pay a special attention to the critical requirement. So sometimes in a requirement, you can clearly say that, hey, this requirement is pretty tricky. There are a number of ways to do these things. So certain those requirements are, you have to put a kind of, that's my way of annotating. So I used to put a star. I used to try regular requirements. I used to narrate in 30 seconds. This thing I take 2 minutes to really go into details in the presentation itself. So in the Q&A, there will be less emphasis on that. And last thing that's very, very important, which I felt is, judges are there to help us. Judges, when you start your conversation, they will clearly show you a path. Let's say you have a gap, or you are in a wrong path. They will try to drive you outside that. Sometimes you yourself will put you in the corner, because you will be asking, there will be iterations in the same answer. You will be changing the answers, and you will be giving more, you'll be opening more and more things, so which can cause a damage. So these things, judges will try to help, or try to drive you outside this kind of uh, a confusion pool. So that keep in mind. And key takeaways. Okay, so now my experiences, there are certain things in the structure, in the kind of best practices, or kind of the principles, and there are certain things I deduced from my experience. So now, based when I mix these two things, there are certain key takeaways. So what these are very very important. I think this is the real important slide that I would like to pass it to you all. One key important thing, there's no shortcut, is improve overall Salesforce knowledge. You have to have this knowledge, because me, I took 2 months only on the knowledge. When I'm doing this knowledge, I haven't done any scenarios. The only thing I used to do is, let's say I take a security guide, parallelly I take notes. The notes will be my cheat sheet. And sometimes in the security requirements, there are certain things that are pretty critical. I want to really remember these things. So those things I create a flashcard or something. So these flashcards and cheat sheets will be my reading material after these 2 months till the exam. I think there's 45 days more between the my knowledge phase is done till the exam. There are 45 days. Every day there is a ritual. 30 minutes doing all the artifacts, 30 minutes working on your flashcards, and 30 minutes reading your whatever the cheat sheets. You have a plan, you cover. So these three things, which are deduced from your knowledge phase, are pretty important. So that's very important. And the second thing is the practical experience will help. Sometimes me, I'm a visual guy. So when I'm talking about a solution, I visualize it. If I have to visualize it, I have to do it. So to do it, so most of the things I used to take, uh, we as a group, so we have around 40 to 50 sandboxes. So we used to use certain for the to test all the auth mechanisms or all the sharing methodologies. So get comfortable with these things. So sometimes you will, if you're lucky, so you will get an opportunity to work as a part of the project. So if you are not, so you have to think of different scenarios, make them more complex, and get that practical experience. Get comfortable with the data model changes during the Q&A. This is a place where I see a lot of people, or including myself, uh, bit worried, because whenever a data model, let's say I have a wrong choice of data model, I have a mask detail to look up or something else. Whenever we see this, there will be a lot of repercussions. You have to really understand what might break and what how you can fix that. So when you're changing it, you should have this mental model. Okay, oh, so this thing changed, so no, this thing can have a trickle down effect on the sharing. So now how can I deal with that, where exactly that part is? So again, this is linked to the mental model that we were talking before. Next thing is avoid the snowball effect. Snowball effect is you doing bad solutioning will have effect on your presentation. Your presentation doing bad will have an effect on the Q&A. The more errors you do in the first, the more concerns, more things that will pop in your second phase. The more errors you do in the second phase, the more things pop out of the third phase. So try to avoid. So don't get this snowball effect. So if you're not, your presentation or preparation is not good, your Q&A is going to be pretty tricky. So avoid that. So, and second thing is the dominoes effect. This is something we talked before. Let's say you're answering something. When a wrong answer or change in your response or change in your solution might break something else. So you have to be very cautious about that. Don't uh, go into a kind of a recursive pool there. And also understand why and what was being asked before answering. This why and what is very important, because initially I used to, whenever someone asked me a question, either I start with an answer without even listening to the question completely, because I'm kind of stressed in the Q&A. So this behavior will change slowly when you practice more and more, when you get comfortable with that section. Because I clearly know that my weak point is the security sharing. So initially that was pretty bad. I kind of avoid doing Q&A in that, but slowly that changed because I do more and more knowledge phases. I see people how they respond. I see people how they absorb the question, they kind of process it, and other than doing a word salad or something, or blabbering something, really thinking and answering. This is an approach where I worked quite a lot, because that's my weak point. And again, improving muscle memory for Q&A, make them as a reflex. A lot of questions have to be a reflex. You can't, after 4 hours of preparation, don't expect yourself to be at your best thinking each and every question, responding. Try to minimize that. So do as many, create your flashcards, your own flashcards, because based on your experiences, based on your weak areas, you can create a set of flashcards and you practice. And when you're practicing, you will end up creating more flashcards. And if you use any tool like Anki or Quizlet, they have a space repetition mechanism. So you say that every day my job is to do 50 cards. Let it be right or wrong. So 50 cards. When it's wrong, it will come back again. If it's right again, it will come back after 1 or 2 weeks. This whole, even when you're comfortable with it, do it again and again till at some point it becomes a reflex. Same thing for the artifacts also. Let's say uh, your JWT flows and everything. So you practice more and more. So at some point it will be as you can draw your flows in less than 30 seconds or 1 minute. So that is with the right amount of detail. Last thing is the cheat sheets. Cheat sheets helped a lot, especially before, I said, in the 45 days and also the last week before the exam, where that's my only place or only things I used to read. And also these cheat sheets are something that iterate a lot. They start at a level, so then when you have a discussion with your buddies, or when you see that, hey, there's certain things missing, you iterate on that, you add more content to that. This always happens. There's no cheat sheet or cheat or your flashcards that's complete. So always this you have to iterate, or you have to, these are kind of a live document. So the last thing is the practice section based grilling sessions with study buddies or any CTAs that you know. This is very, very important. I used to do that quite often. I said I used to work with Varna and Jitendra. So we used to have these sessions. They used to grill. Even when I requested some of the CTAs, they're willing to help. Some people are pretty good. They grill you really. They give you um, you feel you have to be uncomfortable. So if you're very comfortable, you find another group or judge there. That's the key takeaways. And before asking the Q&A, I would like to, I have an idea. I would like to put three questions and I want to give answer, because these three questions are asked in the last 3 weeks more than 3 times. People ask me via LinkedIn or WhatsApp, or when I had a conversation with them. So I feel like these questions are coming back to me again and again. So I'd like to really answer these questions in a quick way, uh, and before taking your questions. How deep and detailed should my answers be? Very simple. So it depends on the question. It depends on the question, and try to give the right answer. When you know why are they asking, you know what I should answer. When you know what you should answer, you should have a narrative, or you should have an answer. Try to tune it. Try to simplify it. Remove the unnecessary words. No one is expecting you to give a grammatically correct answer. What they expect you is to kind of a bunch of keywords, or your approach, your thought process. So try to minimize that. Can I skip a question? Well, frankly, I feel my answer is no. But if you're in a situation where one question you're trying to answer for more than 5 to 10 minutes, and you're still there and you're not really getting what the judge is trying to ask you, request that you would like to park it aside, and you want to come back later. It's not like you're just literally skipping, because that skip can cost you a section. So beware of this skipping process. Try to avoid that. If you're really wasting your time, sometimes you have to do that. Last thing, can some sections be covered without a need of question in a Q&A? I think yes. Certain things, as discussed before, your identity, maybe governance, if you have right artifacts, they, I think the detail is right in there in the artifacts. And when you present, you kind of, for me, your artifacts are the first paint. They have to have a certain level of detail. Your presentation is the second paint. That's where you add more detail on top of it. Don't repeat the same thing that's already existing. Try to add more detail to it. So most of the time, the governance, the integration, the DevOps, the development lifecycle, your identity slides, these things can be pretty much covered without even in the presentation itself. So that's the thing. Yeah. So and the last thing is Q&A. Amit, so how will take the Q&A? Do you have a
Yeah.
list of questions or?
Yep. So let me allow everyone to unmute themselves. If anybody have any question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question directly.
Hey Pranil, I have a quick question on the presentation. So the confusion I have is mostly around how do you talk about the requirements one by one and then go to the solution, because as you mentioned, requirements could be kind of 3-4 points to it. If you start reading the requirements all over again and then talk about the solution, you are losing time there. So that means, do you have, what is your approach? Like, do you paraphrase it? And if you are paraphrasing it, then you cannot remember all the requirements at one shot, right? Are you writing down the paraphrased version in your annotation while you are presenting? What's the approach you have taken, or you would advise?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Utaj. Yeah. So yeah, I tried different approaches because my artifacts are completely hand-drawn. I don't have the luxury to write everything. So I think there is I kind of paraphrased. So I'm not going to read because let's say there will be around 45 to 60 requirements based on the size of your scenario. Given I have around 28 minutes for the requirements, so there's no way that I can really cover the complete requirement with the complete solutioning. And even judges don't want to hear the complete requirement again. For me, at the same time, I can't say that, hey, first requirement, this is the answer, second requirement, this is the answer. I have to have a balance between both. So what I did is I used to say requirement number one, about I used to have like the high level business process, because there'll be macro process, right? In the macro process one, I used to have this macro process designed as a kind of swim lane. In that, I used to take first requirement, kind of a couple two or three requirements into a single requirement. Hey, the requirement is to really create an account and pass that to an external system, let's say, and that external system should send back the updates in sync or something. So I used to group those things as a narrative, more like a story. And then I used to say, yeah, my approach to solve this is in so and so way. In that way, I kind of optimize the time I spent in reading the same requirement.
Awesome. Do you have any example that you could share? I don't know, like hand drawn, anything rough. I
I
just
can
wanted to
I
get a
can
feel of.
send the PDF of one of the document. I mean the scenario that I think laptop to schools with the annotations, maybe with the solution key that should help.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks,
Yep. Paril, if you can share that scenario with us, I will be post on the blog post so that people can download from there.
sure, Amit.
Hey, Pranil, thank you so much for the great session. This is Madhu. A follow-up question from the previous one, right? So we are ready for the presentation. We finished all the requirements and have artifacts and everything covered in there. And during the presentation, we noticed that, okay, suddenly I have missed a major requirement that was in the original document, and then you realize then. So is it good to call out that you forgot that and then say, but you know the answer for that, right? You say, okay, this scenario fits in here, but I didn't articulate it. Or is it okay, like the judges point out the same? Do we say that, okay, I forgot it, and then give them the solution how that particular requirements fits into the big picture?
Yeah, that's again a good question, Madhu. I think yes. So first thing, judges don't care about when you answer the question. The idea is that you have the answer. The first thing is best case scenario during the presentation itself. You found that, hey, something I missed because when I'm reading, I said, hey, somehow I forgot about that. If you have the answer, if you have that quick in giving a solution, of course, just call out, hey, this thing I missed. I would like to. This is my approach towards the solution. Second case, in the Q&A, you completely forgot. So judges pointed that, hey, Madhu, can you read this second requirement in page number 3? You'll be reading that and said, oops, I forgot about that. Just give me one moment, so I'll think of it. And this is my approach. Absolutely. I think judges will be happy. The only thing is you will end up wasting a bit of time.
Yeah,
But you will, if you give an optimal solution to that, there's no problem.
got it. Thank you.
I have one question.
Hi, Pranil.
Pranil, this is Jay. I have a question. How much of things like Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, and Community Cloud, how much of that do you need to know?
Quite a bit, because I feel they are tier one product clouds like sales, service, marketing, now field service, lightning, and these things you have to know really well. When I say how much, at least you should know the data model.
Mhm.
There are certain things called tier two, like your CG cloud, CPQ, maybe all the new clouds that are in and around Salesforce. Those things you need to know what they do exactly. If you have to propose it in your landscape or in your solutioning, you should know why you are doing that. If you're not very comfortable with the data model, at least kind of imagine these are the objects, high level objects, and if there's any link or instead of master detail, if you put a lookup or if you kind of normalize certain objects, it won't be a problem. But at least these tier one products, you have to really know what they're doing. Let's take marketing cloud as an example. What marketing cloud is doing? Why Paradot? Why not marketing cloud? These things are very, very important to know.
Hi, Pranil. Rajul here.
Here as well.
Yeah. So, Pranil, do we have any specific weightage to the each section, like IAM or data architecture or for other area? And one more thing is how about the questions, because when you're going for when you're attending any the CTA section, right? So whether they will give complete use case to you before itself, or on the same day only you will get it. So what is the maximum time you will spend to understand the requirement, and when you will start when they will start the CTA exam? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first step in order to jump into your CTA prep as well. So you will get a scenario. That scenario can be around 10 pages, as said. You will get 3 hours to prepare. It's just they'll give you right before the exam. So once they give the scenario, the timer starts. 3 hours, you end up solutioning, and then 1 hour to present, and 45 minutes for the Q&A. And
Okay.
you talked about the weightage, right? So
Yes.
there is a scorecard and also
Okay.
study guide. So there are around 7 main sections, out of which each section, like I think they have certain things, like let's say the system landscape should cover your identity and access management, your integration strategy, certain things.
Okay.
So these all goes into it. If you miss certain part, that section will be affected.
Okay.
If you fail 2 sections,
Hmm.
you can do retry only on the 2 sections. If you fail more than 2 sections, I think you have to take the complete
Complete.
board again.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
So one
Hello,
question, one
go ahead.
question, one question I will be asked, Panil. So might be that will be really helpful for all the people who just want to start their journey for the CTA. So very first thing, like people completed their all the exam, like prerequisite, like I will say system architect and application architect, and they want to prepare for that. So how much time they should put in advance for preparing for the CTA review board? And once they want to go for the CTA journey, what should be their route, like how they should prepare, which topic they should start first? So I am talking about anyone who just completed the certificate and want to go for the CTA board, how they should plan for their final, how much time they should put into the buffer, and what topic they should read in which particular sequence, because the study they need to do again, might be they are doing their preparation from a long time, they need to revise. So any particular tips you want to give over here?
Sure, Amit. That's very good question. I think it depends. For me, system architect and application architect preparation for that and preparing for CTA are two different animals. So you can't. That preparation will only help in knowledge, but the CTA, the preparation, the thought process should be different. The amount of detail you have to go into it is different. So I feel it depends on the person. Myself, I think in my case, after this exam, because my experience is different, because I work more across industry. So I said this industry knowledge is very important. My problem is I miss this hands-on experience. So I have to really put a lot of time in getting this hands-on. But if you have enough experience with these all core clouds and you have done enough implementations and you are comfortable talking to a C-suite executive or someone, so that when you talk, you don't talk the technical elements, but you talk in a more distilled version, in a more business focused language. If you have these things, I think the preparation to the exam will be around 3 months should be enough. But if you don't have the experience, again, 3 months, again, this is subject to it changes from person to person. If you don't have enough experience, you're kind of a developer who is like transforming into an architect just now. So I think you need to work on a lot of things outside the Salesforce ecosystem to understand a lot of whys.
Makes sense. Ajit, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Amit. Pranil, this is Ajay. I know there is this concept called think on your feet, right? Expect unexpected. Can you share your experience more in that perspective? We definitely get those kind of expect unexpected, right?
Absolutely.
So any tips or how did you handle if you did get that question in your exam? If you can throw some light there, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. I think that's a place where I struggled a lot, Ajay. Because as I said before, I said minimize the unexpected, but always there will be this unexpected zone. Absolutely. I think more than 30%. So when they ask initially, what I used to do is I used to have this kind of nervousness or kind of lack of confidence. When they ask, I used to jump and answer something. Sometimes I do this word salad because I'm thinking at the same time, thinking and talking. At least in my case, that doesn't work well. So I'm saying this is during my mocks with study buddies or with some of the mock review boards. So then what I did is I have to come back and I have to work on that quite a lot. So that's where I took around 4 to 5 weeks only on this thought, how I take a question, how I think, process, and talk. And how can initially I used to think a lot, so I used to waste 30 seconds before answering. That's not going to work. Then I have to, where is the problem? Okay, so the problem is, I think you have to be a bit more mindful. At the same time, you have to have more depth in the knowledge. So when I worked on both things, this response time, first thing I stopped thinking and talking at the same time. One. Second thing, this thinking time I want to reduce. This cognitive ability should be increased. Once I get to that level, so my average time is around, I used to wait maximum 5 seconds before answering. But when I answer in a very crisp way. Does that answer your question, Ajay?
Yeah, thank you, Pranil.
I have a question. It's Thiago speaking. During the Q&A, are you allowed or suppose or asked to create new artifacts or update the ones that you created, or you should basically provide oral answers?
Good one, Diego. I think you can't update your artifacts, but you keep a note of it. So once, because you will be presenting, I think someone else will be presenting, especially now it's remote board, right? Someone else this presentation is done on a remote desktop. So you'll be just seeing the screen and you will be presenting. In the Q&A, when I said, oops, I did something wrong, I have to change my data model, just keep note of that. After this whole Q&A, you can ask your proctor, hey, I would like to do a small modification, and they will allow to do. First thing, the judges will also take note of it, but doing this modification is pretty important. In case if someone missed it, these changes will be a part of your artifact. So when they're doing the scoring process, they will not miss this detail. So your solution will be intact.
Thank you. I think there are also a few questions on the chat.
Is it, how can I access that? Amit, do you see them?
Yeah. So one question, what did you do in a break between your presentation and a Q&A? Any words of advice? Next question.
Yeah, again, that's a very good one. I think that I inspired from quite a lot of my friends who took the board right before me. The ideal thing is to don't do anything, just take a break, because you need that. because after that intense working, especially in your solutioning, there'll be a lot of things coming into your head. Maybe that's not right. Maybe this is another way. Maybe I missed something. Stop all the thoughts. Get that, go into that mindful space for a second, because this is very, very important, because especially in the Q&A, presentation is kind of a, if you have a proper presentation strategy, it flows. You might miss something, but it will flow. But the main thing is before the break, before the Q&A. At that time, you have to be mindful. You have to take a pause and you have to come back. So now you have a complete new perspective. If you in the middle, you jump in, you want to refer to a document, you have to call something, you should call someone or whatever it is. That's first thing. Uh, that's not legal. Second thing, even that won't help you.
And one more question, generally for the testing strategy, where do you fit the information regarding testing in? It's under the release managed artifact, or how much are expected to know about the testing tool we suggested?
Yeah, that's again a very good question. These things will come under the governance, the last section. They'll go into the development life cycle. Sometimes, first thing, your artifact should go, your whatever your governance methodologies, in a program, and your environment management, your testing strategy, they should go into that. Sometimes there will be a specific requirement of, hey, they're wasting a lot of time in the bugs, they want to automate a lot of process, or else the same bugs are being shown into UAT and something. Then you have to really cater a solution for that specific problem. Then you have to give a tool. Maybe you have to say that they want to have the visibility, business visibility, they need an application lifecycle management tool, or else a CI/CD, or else you can suggest Selenium or Provar, that kind of automated with this whole CI/CD process, things like that. But you have to, again, as I said, why is very important. If they ask, you put a solution and tie it back to the requirement. If they haven't asked anything, give you a regular testing strategy.
So,
yeah, I have a follow-up question. Yeah, so during the Q&A, are we also supposed to know about the testing tool we are suggesting? For example, let's say we are suggesting Selenium. So are we also supposed to know how we would automate using Selenium? Because that's kind of part of testing. So is that an expectation during the Q&A as well, to explain how we would use that tool?
Yeah. Yes, at least a basic level, yes. At least you should know that Selenium, what exactly it will do. Selenium, like, do you have a rule set on which this will run, or do you have kind of a pure UI based testing? They might come back and ask you. It depends on the way that you answer. Don't put something pretty generic. Always try to specify it. If you're not comfortable with Selenium, propose something else, or else say that, um, or at least try to get comfortable with the kind of automation testing tool, or else say that I would like to look into an app exchange, or else pick a name and just read about. You should know why you are doing that. That's it.
Yeah, thanks, Panil.
okay, thank you so much, Panil. And just an announcement for everyone, like from the Monday onward, we are going to plan almost 17 plus recorded session directly live stream on ApexR YouTube channel for identity and access management. I know that is a topic which everyone want to learn and the weak area. So we especially connected with our CTA members, and good thing we will going to talk about all the flows, especially with the diagram, how to follow it, and couple of session for practical hands-on, like people who know about all this flow, but they don't know how to do the hands-on. Everyone, we are planning to publish on Apex our YouTube channel from the Monday. So keep following and subscribe our YouTube channel to get a notification when the session will be published. And just want to let you know, we have awesome speakers, Lawrence, who is going to explain, like, I guess most of the people follow his blog for all the flows. So that will be a great add-ons for today.
Excellent, Amit.
And thank you everyone for the joining, and thank you so much, Panil, for a great session and helping us, sharing your knowledge and lots of good tips you shared today. And I hope that will be helpful for everyone who are planning for their CTA review board, and so that will be really helpful for them. And thank you so much everyone for joining over the weekend, and big thank to the Pranil for giving your precious time with our Salesforce for HANA, and I hope this will be really helpful for everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. Bye.
Okay. And we will share the recording on our YouTube channel, so if you, just in case if you miss initial part, you can follow from there. Thank you so much.